Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and we have the Srk Self-Reliant Knives LeBlanc. Now, this is a very slicey EDC blade, and that's what I consider it as. This isn't, not saying you can't use it as an outdoors knife or something like that, but to me, this is a EDC fixed blade, which is awesome because, excuse me, a lot of fixed blades are, made for camping and things like that. This is more of a utility, slicey, super slicey EDC blade that is going to continue to cut even when the edge is dull because it's very thin behind the edge. So the blade steel is Z-Finite, or also like LC200N. They're basically the same steel, which is a highly corrosion resistant steel, super stain resistant. So you're not going to have to worry about corrosion or anything like that. And that's also, one beauty about this for, say, hunting, fishing, things like that. And even though I say, it's an EDC blade, I still put it all under that. I guess when I said fixed blade, I mean like not for like chopping and things like that, but for all the finer tasks on the campsite or throughout your daily life, this is going to be awesome. Like I said, for fishing, hunting, things like that, food prep, whatever. I didn't do anything like that with it, but I did do a lot of cutting with it. We'll talk about that in a second. One thing I'm really happy about is this is proudly made in the USA. I was really excited to find that out. It fits a little corner that I think we're lacking in just a little bit, with little USA made EDC fixed blades. So that's amazing. So we have the red micarta scales, and it is a full tang. This does come in different colors, things like that, and we'll talk about the sheath and the carry and all that in just a second. But first, the blade stock is 100 thousandths thick. It is nice and slicey. Behind the edge is right around 15 thousandths, give or take. A little thinner in some areas, a little more in some areas, but right around 15 thousandths. So, mega slicey. Full flat grind. So passing through materials, this thing just blazes through. And when I was using it, I used it throughout a few days of breaking down a lot of cardboard and things like that. And the ergos, it's such a neutral grip that, you do have this little hump right there, but that just makes it that much better. And I think even for large hands, this will still be okay. Now, I do have one little thing I'm going to talk about here in a second with the ergos, but overall, it is fantastic. Super comfortable in the hand, no matter what grip you put it in. You can do all those little pinch grips, but slicing with it, passing through materials, with the ergos, very comfortable. It slices like a champ, and it just keeps cutting for days. It just keeps going and going and going. But that's geometry for you. Geometry cuts, and also geometry helps edge retention. You don't have a ton of resistance when you're cutting with this. Now, the utility type cutting, because I did a lot of push cuts and, just every different type of cutting you can imagine with this thing. But for utility cuts, it's also really good because the way the shape of the handle goes, if you kind of look, you can see how it's kind of straight right here, but then it curls right here. So this comfortably goes right into your palm. So you can get right down. You don't have to lift up really high to get to the tip. You can go pretty low to get to the tip, so you don't lose a lot of leverage. It is almost a spear point, but it's a drop point blade, but it's a very versatile blade shape. So basically anything you want to do with it, it's going to be good at. And that's a beautiful thing with an EDC fixed blade. Before we talk about sharpening, let's talk about the carry. So I did carry it a couple different ways. Now you have the band, so you can just hang the sheath from your belt, or you have something like the Tech Lock where you can turn it any direction, so you can carry it sideways on your hip, or you can have it scout carry on your back or in the front, however you want. I carried it scout carry. I did carry it around in the front a little bit, but I mostly carried it scout carry. And the sheath is very nice. It clicks in with authority. It hangs in there really good. No rattle, no tap whatsoever. You have a push-off point, so you have to squeeze and you can push off. It does have a nice strong push off, and it works great. No problems with that, and you can easily switch it, just by taking out the screws and repositioning it. All the screws and hardware comes in the box. Like I said, it also has the bands, so it has every different way to carry it, to change it for exactly how you would like to carry it. Now, it's not too big to where it felt like it was too bulky or anything like that. It was very light. I really didn't see any issues. I mean, obviously, when you sit down, you do notice it if it's on your back, but if it's on your front, you don't. So it just depends on you and how you want to carry it, but it does carry very nicely, very secure, very well. I never felt like it was going to fall out. I never felt any hindrance to it or anything like that. It was great. And that's one thing that I think is very important with an EDC fixed blade, because that's why we love folders, because of the ease of carry. You can easily just slip it in your pocket and forget about it. With a fixed blade, it winds up becoming more of a hindrance. It's bouncing on things, scratching things. You're trying to go in between things when you sit down, just all those things. So having a nice, comfortable way to carry is very important if you're talking about, even if you're talking about for camping or whatever, because, you're going to be, throughout the woods or wherever you're at, fishing or whatever, you want to be comfortable. Now, you can always just unscrew it and throw this part in your pocket, without this. I did do that, actually, probably the most. I just slipped it right in my back pocket and just went about my day. But, obviously, there's lots of different ways you can carry it yourself. Now, sharpening it. Speaking of sharpening, so after using it a good bit, a lot of it, like I got to the point to where it was so dull that it was still cutting because of geometry, but there was nothing left of the edge. I demolished this edge. I did so much cutting that it wouldn't have mattered if it was K390. It still would have been super dull. And that is kind of a beautiful thing, that even when it is dull, it'll still cut. But I went beyond stropping and honing and things like that. I did hone it, actually. I did actually hone it and then kept cutting, but I got to a point to where I needed to sharpen it. So I did wind up sharpening it. Now, I don't remember if I recorded it or not, but I did sharpen it, and the steel felt fine sharpening it. However, I'm not sure, and I need to make this clear that I could be one of the variables here. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the steel inherently. I'm not very familiar with VENEV. I've dealt with a lot of LC200N. I'm not sure if it has a burnt edge or what. But when I resharpened it, after sharpening it, I did strop it. Now, after sharpening and stropping, while it's very, very sharp, it's incredibly sharp, it doesn't have a lot of bite. It does not have the bite that I want. Like, I can slide my fingers up the edge because it just doesn't have the level of bite that I would like on a new fresh edge. I would want a little bit more bite. Now, one of the variables could be that I shouldn't have stropped as much as I did. Maybe I should have just did a deburring right off the stone. I should have just, after getting to the stone I wanted to finish on, I could have just deburred it, hit it on the strop once or twice, and went on. But I did wind up deburring, and then I did strop with two different strops, sort of a progression strop. So that could be the reason why, kind of like they say, overstropping. Maybe I overstropped. Maybe this steel with this heat treat doesn't really like to be overstropped. And I'm definitely considering that. But I did not sit there and sharpen it 5 different ways and figure out which edge it likes the best. No, I'm not super familiar with, like I said, with VENEV, but I am with LC200N. And I never really had that issue with LC200N. So I want to think that it's just a burnt edge, but, it's hard to say. It is difficult to say. And like I said, I am I understand that I could be the variable here. It could be 100% my fault. But it is one of the things. I didn't think that the edge took a great amount of bite, but it still is a very functional edge. You know, it's very sharp. It's super thin behind the edge. So I don't think you'll have a problem with it biting into things. And you could always put it with a coarser grit. I did, I think, 600 grit, and then I stropped on, what was it, 6 micron, 1 micron, and quarter micron, I think is what I did. And the edge came out good, but like I said, just not a lot of bite. Now, there is a video done by Stasa23 already too. So I do think you should possibly go watch his video as well. He did a lot of stuff with it, you know, also with this exact same one. So you can also get his perspective on it also, you know, and get 2 different people's perspectives, because that's always a good thing. And Stasa23 has great content, awesome guy in the community. And yeah, so I love his content, and I trust anything he says, you know, that he means what he says, and I trust him. So definitely watch his content as well. Now, going into some negative things really quickly. One, I like the ergos a lot. I do like the ergos. However, you see how it goes thicker to thinner, and I think right, and it does kind of bulk back up a little tiny bit right there. But I did find that for my hand, and I do have a large size hand, that I wanted it to be, I mean, a tiny, tiny, tiny bit bigger. Just a little tiny bit thicker. And I mean, such a small amount that it's difficult for me to even say it's a negative thing. So I'm not saying it's bad. And this jimping on the spine really locks you in. This is functional jimping that works very well without being too sharp. Lands in a perfect spot, whether I'm like this or like this, whether I'm choked up. You know, it's just a great spot for the jimping, and good jimping that they added. But I just feel that, you know, in my fingers back here, the pinky, because those are the 2 fingers that when you're pushing through something, they get the leverage. Because when you push through something, the handle goes like that. So it's these 2 fingers that trap it from doing that, you know, from coming out of your hand. And I just find that I wish it was just a tiny, tiny bit thicker. Not a big deal at all. I do like the sharpening tool, by the way. I forgot to mention that. I should have mentioned that. The sharpening tool is really nice. They did take the plunge grind and they moved it away from the edge, which I do like. So shout out to them for doing that, for doing a good plunge grind, because it's away from the edge and leaves you a lot of room to sharpen. But the next thing that I would complain about is what I already said, you know, which, like I said, it's difficult for me to even complain about it because it could be my fault, but the bite from the edge. Other than that, man, this is a fantastic little EDC knife. I do like this thing a lot, and it does come in different colors. My car does, and I'm gonna link everything I can down in the description. I'm not sure if they're sold out at the moment or if they are, when they will be back in stock, but you can check the site down in the description. I 100% recommend it, especially for somebody who wants a small EDC fixed blade that's super slicey, and somebody who possibly wants a fishing knife, a hunting knife, a camping knife, things like that. That's more, you know, more what's the word? You know, more for precision use, not like chopping and hard use, but more for the majority of things you use a knife for. That's, you know, not hard use. But there you guys go. I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.